Welcome to Agriculture in Review, a news program of current interest to South Dakota farmers and ranchers, prepared by the South Dakota Farmers Union. This is Allan Burke. The 1974 session of the state legislature convenes next week, and that means hard work for both legislators and their constituents. As usual, there will be no shortage of issues, and farmers and ranchers will be directly or indirectly affected by virtually all of the bills that will be debated during the 30-day session. Among the more obvious issues of interest to rural people include the struggle to reform our state's tax system, the Family Farm Act, land use legislation, the Uniform Probate Code, transportation, and, well, the list goes on. The four-year medical school proposal will be a major discussion topic, as will legislation to allow the organization of health care cooperatives. Legislators were busy all through 1973 with that year's legislative session, as well as with the interim hearings and other meetings following the session. Now they'll be offering and debating the legislation that has come out of the interim committees, along with a large flow of bills introduced by individual legislators. Citizens will have great influence on this session, since every legislator knows that his votes will be judged at the general election next November. It is important that farmers and ranchers keep in touch with the lawmakers from their areas so that legislators have a keen awareness of how the people feel about the issues. An area that will require a lot of hard work by farmers and ranchers is tax reform. For 20 years, what to do about the state's antiquated tax system has been debated. And in recent years, the legislature has bogged down in an avalanche of tax reform proposals. 1973 seemed to be the year when the reforms would finally be passed into law, but tax reform again failed to come about. Many citizens have become disenchanted temporarily and are questioning whether or not the 1974 legislature will pass any type of meaningful tax reform. At this point, it's obvious that taxes will be an important issue in the session, and that several income tax bills will probably be introduced. Legislators will need all of the support that people can muster in order to encourage them to act on taxes. The property tax continues to go up every year, hurting low and moderate income people and putting a severe burden on farmers and ranchers. And schools are still financed, for the most part, by the inequitable property tax. The current financial crisis in public schools is an indication of the futility of trying to pay for school costs with a local property tax that has no relation to the number of students to be educated. With a large number of bills to be discussed during the 1974 legislature, and because the session will last only 30 days, the outlook for major tax reform is not particularly bright. However, a lot will depend upon the pressure from the folks back home. If legislators get personal visits, phone calls, letters, and telegrams from their constituents calling for tax improvements, it would have a dramatic effect on the direction this legislature takes on the entire tax matter. The Farmers Union will be taking busloads of farmers to the state capitol during the session to give lawmakers a better idea how grassroots people feel about the bills at hand. A weekly legislative newsletter will be published by the Farmers Union to keep rural people better informed. And, of course, the Farmers Union will have a full-time staff in Pierre to watch out for the farmers' interests. But the most influential people are ordinary voters who care enough to contact their legislators. And this year, ordinary people have the added leverage of the upcoming general election. A concerned electorate is the best avenue toward good legislation. And with that, we'll close another edition of Agriculture in Review. This is Allan Burke asking you to join us again next week for another review of rural America's highlights. This program was produced by the South Dakota Farmers Union.